Think about guys who have just come in and fundamentally altered the way the game is played. You think through the history of the league, Magic, Kareem to an extent. Um, you could say that about LeBron to some sort of extent, but Curry is right up there because if you watch the NBA 5 years ago, it's nothing like what we're seeing even now. Like teams take threes, but not like this. And I think that also part of it goes back to analytics as well. And Wolves, I know you hate analytics. We were talking the other day, and you startled me out of nowhere. We were talking about analytics. You were like, "Oh yeah, I can't stand him. Hate him."
You're correct. I think it depends on the sport. This is what I always say. Baseball, let's start with baseball. You brought up a great point earlier in the show about expected batting average, right? I think that's something you could look at, really fascinating. And in the Yankees press conference is something I found really interesting is you listen to Garrett Cole when he talks about the amount of information that pitchers have, and they can use that to their advantage. And I think that's a lot of why, as you guys mentioned, you're seeing pitchers almost dominate the game today because of the amount of information that's presented to them. Basketball, analytics should not play a part in it whatsoever. And the reason I say that, you guys know this, I feel like, Andrew, you're nodding your head here. It's a game about stars. It's a game about talent. The Brooklyn Nets can use whatever analytics they want. If you don't have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, you're going nowhere. If the Golden State Warriors don't have Steph Curry, you're not going anywhere. You can use, I think, whatever analytics you want to justify how to play the game of basketball. But if you don't have the guys that can put that ball in the net, I don't think it necessarily matters. If anything, it can generate marginal differences. And I think, using an analytic here or there, it could help your team. But if you're relying on that to win, I don't think you can ever do it. And I think the Rays in the World Series last year, you pull your star when it matters most. It's all about stars. That's what's going to win you games, not the analytics. They might get you there, but they're never going to put you over the hump in my mind.
I completely agree with you, Alex. I think in basketball, there are certain stats, when you're game planning for a certain team in the postseason and it's going to be a 7-game series, maybe there are some analytics that you kind of want to focus on in terms of game planning against a team's offense or defense. But the way, Dylan, in baseball, that analytics is really taking a stranglehold where teams are basically, they're not in love with, they're using analytics almost in fear, not because they love it and they feel like it's revolutionizing the game. They're using it because they know if they don't, other organizations are going to take advantage of them and you're going to end up at the bottom of the barrel because that's just what it is. But I would also say this, some teams haven't been all in. I mean, the Rays last year, they were not a team where everyone thought, they were analytics driven heavily. They had one of the worst payroll. I mean, the lowest payroll in Major League Baseball. So for some teams, and even with the Dodgers, we don't hear the Dodgers on their side saying that they're heavily analytical. I mean, we're hearing it from teams like the Yankees, right here, a team like the Yankees, where you wouldn't think analytics would play a big part. It's really more about the money and what they can do in bringing in stars, as Alex mentioned. But the way baseball has really just been crippled by analytics and dependent on it, Dylan, it just seems to me like that's kind of hindering the game a bit and trying to open it up to gain more fans.
Yeah, absolutely. What I think it actually does more than anything, specifically in terms of fatigue and use of players, is that managers and hitting coaches and pitching coaches are so obsessed about getting just the perfect matchup. They'll bring a pitcher or even a hitter in just for one at bat. And what you end up doing is you're only using a guy for one at bat and then you lose him for the rest of the game. And eventually you're going to have to expand the rosters, which are already rather big in itself. And you already have 12, 13 pitchers on the rosters anyway. And it just becomes too much. So I think eventually what's going to happen is either the rosters are going to expand, which I don't think should happen, or it's all just going to explode and they're going to end up back at square one again. Kind of like a big bang of the universe, as Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson might say. But yeah, what I think what is interesting about baseball is that Pete Alonso mentioned something during a Mets press conference the other day that was very interesting. He was talking about analytics and sabermetrics, and he talked about how it can really be an advantage for pitchers, like we've talked about. But for hitters, if you get up to the plate and you're thinking, oh, my expected batting average is this specifically against left-handed pitching, then maybe I can hit it this way, and you're out immediately. He's in your head. The pitcher has gotten into your head, and he's won. So that's something really important. I think in basketball, like you mentioned, it's so much more about talent. I mean, you look at a guy like Steph Curry and that, he can revolutionize the game, but, and you think maybe anybody can just start playing differently, but do you realize how good you have to be to revolutionize the game? I can't just come and start shooting threes and expect to change the game of basketball. You have to be really good at it. So, analytics has its place. I think you're very right. And Jimmy, I'm sure you agree with this.
Yeah, I do, and I just wonder what Donnie Stevenson thinks of the analytics in baseball. That's who I want to hear from.
I wonder what the rat thinks.
The pos.
Yeah, what was the expected batting average on the rat infestation, and yeah, oh my god. But in all seriousness, I think it does have a place. I use analytics in baseball, kind of like on a show like this. I will look into certain players just to make sure that it confirms what I'm seeing, right? I watched Francisco Lindor for the first month of the season, and I can tell you this guy's hitting ground balls, he's not hitting balls hard, his at-bats look bad. And I go to the analytics, and it confirms that. But I watched it, so I know. And I've seen him play, and I've seen him not hit the ball hard enough to know. I've never once, when watching Steph Curry pull up from just in front of half court, never once thought, well, what's the true shooting percentage on that one? No, I don't. I'll go back and look at it, right? And I think there's a place for that, but I never think about it in game. I never think about, okay, well, what are the probabilities of whatnot? I was watching a couple weeks ago, ESPN did a StatCast broadcast, and I liked it. But every time what they would do in the late innings was that Dodgers-Padres game where the Padres came back late. They were down like 7-1. They did the win expectancy, and it was insane. It was up and down, and I was like, well, yeah, that's what happens when you have a game that goes back and forth that many times. So sometimes I'm like, yeah, this is really useful, but like win expectancy, for example, like what does that mean? That's not useful to me. So there's certain analytics I like, and then there's certain analytics I'm just like, I could live without.
I'm with you there. There's something about sports that you can never take away. Francisco Lindor, maybe he was going to hit a home run yesterday. Maybe he wasn't. An analytic won't tell you that, and you can only use them in their place. I think that's well said and a good note for me to end on. I got to get my licks in here, Jimmy, so I appreciate it.